Hello, everyone. I'm going to get everybody back from the food coma that you're in right now and say that I am very excited to be here today because we have a very strong panel in front of us. What you're having in front of you is that a great mix of perspectives. You have people from academia to the industry, as well as research and real-world implementation. So we should have a really good conversation today. And unlike what we've done in the past, where you might see panels where I ask a question and one of them answer, and I ask another question, that's not how this is going to work. This is going to be an open discussion where we are going to challenge each other, have different perspectives, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and you guys all get to listen in. Okay? So we're going to start off with a round of introductions. I'll start first. My name is Bictui Lee. I am the founder of LeLumen. I've led an organization with full accountability for AI strategy, governance, implementation, and operation. And as you probably already guessed, I'm going to be moderating the discussion today. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic around, and if you can please give your name, your role, as well as how does AI come up in your work?
Hi, I'm Abid Ali. I worked in tech for a long time and I'm a professor now, and how AI comes in my work is that I teach data science, and I used to work in 2 unicorns who were AI based.
Hi, I'm Daria Tsupikova. I'm professor in the School of Design, and I'm a founder and design chair of Computer Science Plus Design program. AI comes out in so many different ways, as an educator, as a professor, as a researcher. So the presentation, what you saw, just a kind of a little glimpse on that, and looking forward to conversation.
Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy Kurian. I'm a senior software engineering lead at Microsoft, working on a lot of their AI offerings, especially for Fortune 500 companies. In addition to that, I'm also a U.S. Army Reserve officer, specifically in the cyber branch, so AI is at the forefront there as well, and I'll hand it off.
My name is Joe Olson. I am working for IBM, and I am the IBM representative to the AI Alliance, which is an open source advocacy group. We're the one sponsoring the food tonight, so I'm very happy to be here. And I am United States Navy. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to start with thank you for the food. Hey everyone, I'm Puneet Raval. I work for Amazon Web Services. I use AI on everyday basis, as well as I work with customers who are building their data foundations that is getting ready for AI. So I'm the guy they speak to when they're starting to kick off their AI project. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Terry. I'm the Vice Provost for Research at the Illinois Institute of Technology. My research is more on the use of AI in materials characterization. So how can we better understand materials using artificial intelligence?
I'll save us the walk here. So just in case, thank you so much for the introductions, everyone. I'm so excited about this. So just in case if you haven't heard, one of the biggest themes that came out of the World Economic Forums in Davos today is that we are no longer discussing AI like it's a tool or experimentation. We are now talking about how AI is now becoming like an infrastructure. What that means is that AI is going to be everywhere and is here to stay. So why don't we start there? The question that I want to ask all of you is this. If AI is going to be like the infrastructure, very similar to the internet, where it impacts everybody and everything in all social economic of our society. So the question is, what needs to change when we go in and build it, govern it, and hold the company, the leaders, the people accountable for the impacts? So who would like to start first?
Yes, so since you came from Davos, I would say that Jensen Huang explains the 5 layers of AI in a very nice way, and he says the first one is energy, right? So I'll just start there, and then the rest can speak about it. In my mind, I think energy is very important. That's why I'm wearing digital emissions, because I'm a co-founder of a non-profit with my co-professor from Harvard. We are very focused on energy, so I think if we really want to think about this thing, it should be how do we actually create new powers of energies, and how do we actually reduce our emission.
I'm so happy you said that, because in my opinion, if you really care about responsible AI really should be your last solution, so that we can conserve the energy and the cost. Because you don't want to use to kill a fly, use a hammer, right?
I think we should think about the human as in the center of AI, and this is what is the impact on the human the AI technology have, and this is always comes an afterthought, but because we march forward with evaluation and advancement and perfection, but this is something that we really have to consider when we think about infrastructure and integrating the AI all the way.
I know there's an old IBM training manual that's been floating around on the internet and is popular on social media these days as a tagline, and it says that a computer should never make a management decision. So if we apply that in modern context with AI, especially coming from a military background where generative AI is being pushed as a augmented tool for commanders on the battle space and stuff like that, that doesn't alleviate the risk or the responsibility from people making decisions. So never should an AI or a system be the default excuse, well, the AI did it, so I'm not responsible. So as leaders and executives, they should always be in charge of the delivery of that product or service that they're providing. So how it performs in the real world, there needs to be a human taking ownership and accountability of the effects of it.
So, Beck, I like your comparison to the internet. The internet has not really been regulated at all. It just evolved into what it is now, and I think AI is going to be the same. Now, as far as decision making goes, we do that every day right now with pure heuristics, right? There's nothing that says we can't use automation to make decisions. We do that right now, and I don't see this going in a radically different direction than the internet did, or how any automation is used to make decisions now, any heuristics are used to make decisions now.
I'll use the same analogy of internet. In my mind, your software is only as good as your data. And essentially, when I pivoted my career to AI about 3 years ago, unlike the expert of panelist here, I did not come from machine learning or AI background. I had to learn everything from scratch. And I think everyone had to learn that too, about 3 years ago. Honestly, the quality of data that's being fed to AI is not good, and it's only getting worse. And that's what essentially I think I would like to see change, because the data that AI is generating is even worse than the human data. And that's essentially what we need to focus on.
Yeah, so I came into AI somewhat backwards. And this gets to the decision making. I came into AI because humans were doing a terrible job making decisions. And what we found was that scientists who were analyzing data were wrong 40% of the time. And that's actually a terrible rate when your tax dollars are going to pay for it. So what we did is said, can we do better with AI than this current error rate, catastrophic error rate of 40%. And so we started using AI to improve that. So my argument is AI can be much better at decision making if your humans are bad. And so if you don't have good enough humans, you have to be very careful to where AI can be a vast improvement.
You know, you bring up all of you brought up some really good points, because if you think about it, one of the things that I've heard at Davos, what she said is like, you know what, AI doesn't kill people, it's people that kill people. And I thought about that analogy, and there's something kind of like red flag to me, because in some ways, like you said, the internet, and we kind of it didn't cause the whole world to end or anything like that. But I like to say, so I like to push back on that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, because in my mind, the difference between the internet is that it's, in some ways it's passive, right? It's like it allows us to be able to communicate. It's like the superhighway, as they used to call it. Whereas AI, to your point, it was created with well-intention to be able to do math a little bit better, to be able to recognize patterns that us human cannot see, right? And that's how we were able to come up with some amazing things in the healthcare and all of that, and I can go on and on. But the problem is that AI can never be 100% accurate. So what happened, to your point, Praneet, is that when AI generates bad data, right? Because we didn't do the math formula correctly, or maybe it was correct, but it would have unintended consequences. So to your point, it's like, unlike the internet, it's like here it has unintended consequences, and people make decisions based upon it. To, you know, like with the human interactions. So my question is, given all that, how do we make sure that what comes out of it, when is good enough, right? And then when do we need the human intervention in order for it to be innovative like the internet and be able to solve those world, you know, problems of hunger and all of that, right? So I would love to, who would like to answer to that?
So I think I just want to go back to the energy thing, right? As they say that great power comes with great responsibility, right? Spider-Man, you know, his aunt or uncle, right? I'm just thinking that, you know, if we think about technology, it's not the problem. Like say, it's human beings who are the problems, right? So then what should we do? We should educate them. We should educate people. And I go back to energy because if you think about nuclear energy, we can use it for electricity, or I can create a bomb and destroy the world, right? So that's my opinion.
How do I know if I'm buying a widget from Amazon that I'm not paying a different price than you? Okay, there's no trust, right? There's some algorithm that can say you buy more than I do, so you should get it cheaper than I do. We don't know if that happens. There's no way to tell if that's happening. It's all opaque to us. So I don't know if this AI iteration introduces new problems, or it's just amplifying problems we already have that we've gotten so used to that we don't even think about them anymore.
So my perspective on that is, again, any software development or AI development, if you don't have good governance in place, if you don't have goals that you are working towards, if you don't have a way to measure those goals and your success criteria, then you're not going to get a good outcome. We have to align with goals of what your companies that you're working for, or the goals that you're really measuring. That's essentially how it goes.
So this leads to an interesting question in my mind. What regulatory environment, what governments works really well? What examples can we point to as this is what we should be using?
Oh, that's a good question. Who wants to?
So I think, you know, as you were asking this question, I think about traffic, right? There's universal law, you stop at red light, and then, you know, you have to have a seat belt, otherwise you get a ticket. So I think there could be universal laws, and then given every country, you have to add on top of that.
Do you want to take that? Okay.
I have a follow-up to that. How do you address the problem of governance slowing down innovation? You can put all the governance in place, but...
Okay, so with regards to policies and regulations, I mean, like right now, if you think about it, is playing out in the global stage, right? There's the race to AI that you might have heard about. So you have the Biden administration coming in with the executive order that they're working on something that's more responsible. Let's slow it down a little bit, making sure that we have all these safety guardrails in place first. and that led rise to a lot of the state level regulations. And then you have the Trump executive order that then goes in and said, you know what, I believe in the federal level that should have it, right? And if you think about it, a lot of the companies say that there's a federal level, meaning the company-wide rules and regulations, and then all the department, and then you can go in and build off of that, right? So they want to go with that route. And then you have the EU AI Act, which is the risk-based approach. And then, of course, you have China, right? Which is, so China is a very interesting part. So let me start off with, I love the EU AI Act because it's risk-based approach. If you think about it, every single AI solution and use case that you have out there, you need to think about what are the unintended consequences of it. So if it's high risk, to have a huge impact on people or financials or health or whatever the case may be, then you need to slow down and make sure those guardrails are in first before you build it. So that's the reason why I love the risk-based approach. The problem I have with the EU AI Act is that it makes people who wants to do startup to deploy it slow it down too as well. That's where China shines, because the big boys, I call the big boys, the tech big boys, likes to go in and say, we do not need rules and regulations because it's going to slow down innovation. Well, guess what? China is winning the war on AI, and they have one of the biggest regulator in the world. If you look at it, they're heavily regulated, but what they do is that they allow you to deploy it very fast. So I really encourage everybody to take a look at how does the rules and regulations are being put in place, and what is it that makes one country speed up in their innovation than the others one. And when it comes to AI governance, you can Google it. There are so many frameworks out there, so you don't have to start from scratch. But I think the key word, and this is the question I would love to ask you guys, when it comes to governance, there's a lot of frameworks, but how do you make it practical? You can put the policy out there as much as you like, but if nobody can follow it, then it's useless. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that.
So, see, I'm an educator, right? I believe in education. So I think the first step we need to take is educate people, right? Because in order to learn driving, you go to driving school, right? You are not going to drive unless you learn how to drive. So I think we need to start educating people, and then we can take it from there.
AI literacy.
I think it's a great question. In my opinion, is just as long as people know that safeguards exist, and as long as they're aware of the consequences, potential consequences, then they can make a choice. On another hand, there are many inventions and there's many things out there that don't have any safeguards, don't have people not aware about anything. So that's basically lack of knowledge. So if it exists, then people can make informed choices, and this is important.
I'll start off by saying I'm definitely not a policy expert, so I won't speak on that on a macro level, but at a micro level, what I see in projects from day-to-day implementations with different corporations and different organizations is that a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to governance is usually an indicator for project having issues. So having the ability to customize the governance and policy towards the specific scope of the project generally lends to more favorable outcomes and to those guidelines being followed a lot more.
All right, so the European Act. I was on a panel just like this in Zurich back in last summer, and I was shocked. I was the only American on the panel. I was shocked that the Europeans were all of the same opinion that the AI Act didn't go far enough. Okay, they needed to be more regulation before any of them can commit to it, because they didn't want to be told that they couldn't do something after they did it. So I was, as the only American on the panel, I was very shocked at that. On the governance front, is anyone impeded from using Gen AI today because of lack of governance? Everyone is using it, but they're absorbing the risk to use it. And I don't know if governance is in any kind of demand, because it would only be in demand if people stood up, organizations, enterprises stood up and said, I cannot play because this is unsafe. And it was similar with the internet when it started, that we couldn't conduct business over because it wasn't secure, but eventually became secure. So I don't know if governance is, I think it's a red herring. Everyone talks about it. To your point, there's millions of frameworks out there. But I think this, just like the unsafe internet, this is going to fade over the next couple of years, and no one is going to think twice about it.
All right, so like you mentioned, there are millions of frameworks out there. The framework that I usually suggest to all my customer discussion is don't have any guardrails, have an observability framework. Just see what people are doing, if they're doing it wrong or if they're finding new creative ways to cheat the system. But you have the observability layer that is powerful enough for you to be able to respond to this. You can't put preemptive guardrails. That's definitely going to slow you down, and you might not even catch all the corner cases and issues. So that's what would be my favorite.
And I'll agree with that, because the best you can do right now is hide behind a benchmark to say that you are compliant, right? That's the best you can do. If the benchmark is garbage or you abuse the benchmark, that's where the bar is right now.
And so there is another big danger, and that big danger is bad regulation can kill an industry. And relative to AI, nuclear energy is a great example. Terrible regulations destroyed an industry, and we're basically going back to the 1960s now to revamp it and reconfigure it. So basically we've lost 60 years in an industry that's going to be critical to AI. So you have to be careful when you set up these regulations. So I'll disagree a little bit. I do think you do need some guardrail. You need some barrier somewhere, but you have to have, like you mentioned earlier, the ability to implement, test, and try within that boundary quickly, easily, and cheaply.
So I can go so many places with it, because to your point, we do need to have some sort of governance, in a sense that guidelines for those who don't understand AI, so that we can go and give, here's the guidelines, here's what you need to do, here's the risk area. In the meantime, because AI, unlike your traditional system, AI is continuously learning and adapting. So us human who's using AI have to continuously learn and adapt to the AI, because it changes our behavior at the same time. So in some ways, you have to think of it from a company's operation. You have to change your operation cadence. There are going to be new committees that now have to watch, to your point, how has the human plus AI interact with each other? We can't go in and tell a workforce, you know what, upskill, learn the AI, and train AI to take over your job, and now what, you're going to lay me off? But as leader, what you should do is that you should watch the human behavior plus AI and think about, we need to change the job description to now include AI and tie that to performance rewards, right, and career path, because otherwise it means nothing. So similar to governance, it means nothing if we just put a policy out there but doesn't have any consequences to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, I feel that if we don't have any kind of rules and laws to enforce, it doesn't prevent people from trying to experiment like Moltbach, right? Because he was over there thinking that, hey, what a lark, this would be fun to create a social media platform for just AI agent only. I mean, the unintended consequences of that, I don't even want to think about it. So my point is like, if we have some kind of rules and regulation, how many times have you seen it's like, just because it's unethical, but we can't enforce because there's no law against it? And I think that that's the reasons why we need to have some, to your point, Jeff, some kind of rules and regulation there. So
I think we can all agree that there are some boundaries that we don't want AI crossing, right? We don't want AI killing humans. We don't really want AI doing gain-of-function research on viruses, things like that. So there's some areas that do need the hard stop boundaries. And I don't think but on a daily use case basis, I think there's plenty of room to experiment within those areas. But I agree. So you need those hard boundaries. You need those hard stops. There has to be serious consequences for people who are certainly approaching them. But those are the keys. How do you do that? And one of my big concerns is we've never been really good at it as a society. We've got plenty of examples where we've screwed this up. Your traffic example is a great one. I did like that. I'm going to steal that one because it's going to actually probably the only one that works probably halfway decently. But we still have problems with air traffic control. We have problems with regulation in biotech. There's a lot of areas that we haven't done things well. And so I'm not convinced yet that we can do this well when it comes to AI.
Because you were talking about you from the ground up. What do you see? Like, when can AI become effective in terms of governance-wise? That you see that's good.
So I work with AI on a daily basis in terms for our customers, developing solutions, new solutions. And one of the things that was interesting that you mentioned was, tying AI usage to employee performance and how they incorporate that. I do think that is a double-edged sword. And that leads into the second part of your question, because oftentimes what I see in my conversations with my customers is, right now it's definitely a little bit of a hype train, right, with AI. So you see a lot of folks saying, hey, I want to implement AI. I want to use AI for this. And their underlying problem is that not necessarily that AI is going to fix it, but hey, you have a data issue or you have structural issues within your organization that AI is not going to solve. You need to, to Joel's point earlier, is going to magnify pain points and other issues that you have, but it's not going to fix those underlying issues. And in terms of how that ties into the governance, right? If we don't have a focused plan, or in terms of like, hey, like every organization has values or mission statements, right? How does that, your AI initiative, tie into your organization's mission statement? Without a guiding path like that, you're going to have disorganized slop. Everyone's going to be running, but not everyone's going to be running in all kinds of random directions, not in an organized way.
You kind of remind me of this conversation way back when. We actually did an HR resume filtering, and of course they say the best person to fit this job is a white man by the name of John. I don't know why John, but John. So the first question we asked, to your point, data-wise, where did we get the data from? Certainly not social media or anything like that at all. It's internal within the company. Great, so at least you're not irresponsible that way. Was the algorithm bad? No, not really, because it's detecting pattern. So everybody would like to blame AI. AI is biased. I'm sorry, it's computer. It doesn't do bias, it's amplifying, to your point. So I was telling them, AI is not biased. You have an HR problem, right? Because that's what it's exposing. It's exposing the human, like you said, that there's a problem within the company. And so we need to have a culture type of education there. So I would like to turn it to Daria, I hope you don't mind, because AI has been around and you do a lot of human interactions. So just like we just talked about with all these governance, and people so easily use it, and just like the HR example, what are some of the social impact are you seeing, especially with Gen AI, that makes it so easy for everybody to use?
That's a great question. So what we see and what researchers find, like across the East Coast, West Coast, research labs, MIT Media Lab, there is a lot of impact of AI on the social interaction. So people, lots of research about, how pandemic and social media isolated the youth and, us. But potential of AI isolate people, it's much greater. So it's already noticeable in the healthcare, mental health. that people kind of start, some people, who use AI a lot, the mentality changes, behavioral changes appear. So we have to, to your point, is that how do we evaluate it, right? If we just evaluate it from productivity point of view, like how fast is technology, how accurate it is, how efficient it is, but what is the impact on the human? Like what it does to us, and this is without some kind of appropriate, at least approach to that evaluation. It will be hard, and we won't be able to, put those benchmarks and those safeguards, but that's important, because it's already part of our life. It's already happening, what is happening, what's the backfire? We don't know, but we have to move in that direction.
Well, it's an interesting problem because it involves people, right? We're talking about AI, and one of the big problems we have that we're facing now is the energy use. And so with AI, as a human, which causes me a lot of grief sometimes, I love watching AI-generated videos of people traversing the Oregon Trail in the 1800s. That's a terrible waste of energy as far as I'm concerned. Now, if AI was being used not to make Oregon Trail videos, but to increase the output of the government agency that determines whether somebody should be on disability and get disability payments, that's a great use of AI and a great use of our energy resources. So the question is, when we get humans involved, I can't not watch my Oregon Trail video every day when it comes out. How do we deal with the people?
Well, the energy, let's address that first. There's two technologies that matured probably around the same time, electric cars and Gen AI. And Gen AI seems to be getting the raw end of the stick. They're getting all the blame for the energy consumption. But I don't know, I haven't seen any studies that say, electric cars versus Gen AI. So I'm not ready to point the dirty end of the stick at Gen AI on energy consumption yet. To your point, you are wasting energy with Oregon Trail videos. But I don't know how big a problem that is compared to taking a electric car to McDonald's 3 blocks away to get a hamburger.
So I would say the electric car is displacing a different type of energy use. So it's a little different. I think the generative AI is actually increasing energy use and it's increasing demand. So I think there is a big difference between the two.
It would be better if I had my Gen AI powered off of oil or solar.
No, that would be much worse. Well, it would probably be cheaper.
That would be a really good sidebar conversation.
It all depends on if you believe in global warming or not.
I think the difference between electric cars and Gen AI is that the access is so easy. Anybody can use Gen AI. Not everybody can buy a $100,000 car, So that's the difference, I think. And the car can carry 4 people. Gen AI, anybody can use like 15 chat bots out there. So.
There is a positive and negative side in everything, just like what we're discussing right now. If you think about education as an educator, right? My daughter, she's in high school, no use of AI, so obviously for good reasons, right? Because if you just use AI to kind of solve the solution for you, then you don't learn a lot. However, if you think about other use of AI and other approach, what if you have a customized education that will ask questions, instead of giving the solution, and guide you and, sort of prompt you, right? To make decisions yourself, right? What if in healthcare, with majority of population aging, in developed countries, right, we have solutions for elderly to live in their own home with the help of AI that says, well, you already took that pill, so don't do it again. Or listen, you forgot to turn the stove off, So, safety issues, right? So what if it enables, right? This is a research done in that direction. So that's a positive thing, but at the same time, having some kind of evaluative guidelines of preventing people from overusage, being lonely, right? And
I'll add one note to the energy uses at least. I do think that AI's energy will, over time, become more efficient. I do think companies and organizations have an incentive to do so, and there's already initiatives like different data transfer formats instead of using JSON, using something else like Tune to make more efficient usage. I know those are like a drop in the bucket, but over the long-term usage and growth of AI, I do think there will be an initiative to efficiently use that energy because there's a financial incentive for organizations to do so.
Oh yes, because I was go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer the thing that what should we do with people, right? So I watch a lot of movies. I'm sure many of you do. So how many of you have seen Age of Ultron, Avengers, right? So I always tell people every time I have a lecture somewhere with my students, I always tell them, hey, what was Ultron's mission? He wanted to make the world a better place, right? That was his plan. And he had Iron Man's ego, right? But then the same Ultron in the end becomes Vision, and he's able to lift the Thor's hammer. So the point then is that how do we solve people problems? Is that at the end of the day, we are the one who are creating these technologies. We are training them. If we pass on our values and ethics to them, they will be a better machine.
Awesome.
So, I love the directions that we're going here. It started with you, Daria, so thank you so much. Because what I love to hear from each of you, like what are the positive things that AI have created for us, or actually what is the solution, because you offer one of the first solution, right? Because some of the things that we worried about is our dependency upon AI. Because I love to read about neuroscience, and one thing we've all learned, all as scientists, is that if you don't use it, you lose it, right? The brain is very good at being very efficient. So if we don't use it, it starts pruning all the synapses. So in other words, if we start becoming dependent upon AI, so I'm going to say this, I'm going to be recorded, but I used to be a great speller. Now I can't spell to save my life because I was dependent upon Microsoft Word, right? So the question, and you gave a really good example of how we can use AI responsibly, but without being dependent upon it. Because my fear right now, Mark Zuckerberg says so himself, according to research, there are, we only have an average of only 1 or 2 friends that we can rely on. So he wants to create AI friends and therapists for us. He's the one who started social media platform, by the way. So if you can imagine our kids right now, my girls are already going to TikToks, and YouTubes for information. Could you imagine the next generation is going to be using AI to influence them? So we need to start thinking about education and how do we bring those values back so we become human again. So the question I would love to ask you is that I would love to hear from each of you either something that positive, like for an example, because of this whole energy issues, we are not getting better at designing our chips, things like that, right? Or greening the earth. So I would love to hear some examples of how AI improved, or if you have a solution to some of those, hard, challenging questions that everybody's asking.
So I think the most important use of AI is drug discovery, right? Cancer, and Mayo Clinic actually solved a case, So that's, I think, where AI can be useful.
It's a good question, but on a personal level, I am so far from legal advice, but I could, can Google the state, the county, the specific question and get at least, maybe not a very professional legal advice, but at least some kind of a hint of where it's going to be. And that's helpful, on just a regular level.
Yeah, I would say from a perspective of a developer, democratizing knowledge once that was kept by maybe very senior developers, someone who was junior can now maybe learn something as long as the LLM doesn't hallucinate in a very short amount of time versus, hey, I had to read through 5 hours of Stack Overflow posts to find that one thing to figure out what I'm doing, right? So that now that feedback cycle is almost immediate. So it helps accelerate learning, at least what I've seen from when I'm working with my junior developers on my team.
I was going to say code generation, but I think I'm going to side with you. If everyone's got equal access to knowledge, provided you can speak the language, the natural language that the LLM speaks, I think that is probably a great equalizer. If there's nobody has an advantage that they've got access to better information, everyone's got access to equal information. I think that is a better outcome.
I'll take an example of something very simple, not as impactful as solving cancer. If I call into a call center today, they have an entire history of my conversation. They have the summary of all the issues that I've been part of, and they have a solution ready that they can just speak to. I don't have to repeat my problem 5 times anymore. That's a small impact, but I like that a lot, Virginia.
I can go for that.
Yeah, so I'll take the opposite tact here. I really want to be more dependent on AI. In the work I do, we're limited by the number of scientists we can produce. It takes 25 years to produce a scientist, even longer to produce a really good one. And so I can let AI loose on things that would be incredibly dangerous to produce or incredibly cost prohibitive to produce, and let AI determine whether or not it's worth it, whether it's going to have properties that might be useful. The first AI thing I ever published was on battery chemistry, and my colleagues gave it to me to test some of the code that we had written, but they didn't tell me that when they analyzed it with people, they combined 15,000 data sets into 3 files and analyzed 3 files. We let the AI loose on the entire 15,000 file data set and watched how the battery chemistry changed as a state of charge and discharge on the battery. That would have been impossible for people to do. So there's a great use to AI going forward, and we should all use it more often as long as we use it responsibly. So there are plenty of use cases where it will help us out tremendously. And so we've got to hit those use cases and make sure we hit those very strongly.
So I wanted to thank all of you for such a thoughtful and honest discussion. Because if you think about what we just talked about today, we're not really talking about smart AI, if AI is smart enough. We're actually talking about whether we, as humans, are actually designed to be able to absorb the impact of AI at scale, right? Because if you think about everything we talk about, we acknowledge the fact, to your point, Jeff, right, that we can use AI to solve a lot of problems because we don't have enough data scientists and really super intelligent people to do it, and AI has leveled that playing field, right? And then we can go in and generate a lot of amazing things, but it's a question of, can we as humans absorb the impact and the consequences of AI at scale? So I'm going to leave it with this remark. Do not wait until the rules and regulations are in, because I sat at the table and it is extremely hard to create rules and policy that covers everyone, because there's always somebody that we get wrong with unintended consequences. So the one thing, and this is what each time I get a podium, I'm going to have to say this to everyone. In order to innovate, in order to be responsible with AI, when you build AI and when you use AI, you ask the question, how is that going to impact me, my loved ones, my family, my neighbor, my community, and my country? If you think about the consequences and the unintended consequences, I think we can all do a better job at it. So, once again, everybody, please give a round of applause to our panelists. And I also want to thank our sponsors who make discussions like this possible. Thank you, everyone.
And big thank to Big to moderating the panel and organizing it. Thank you so much.